In 2010, Studio Ghibli released a film called Arrietty, or Arietti the Borrower as it's officially called in Japan, or if you're from the America lands, you're maybe more familiar with its English title, The Secret World of Arietti. Regardless of whatever the fuck you want to call this film, I think we can all agree on one thing, that this is literally no one's favorite Studio Ghibli film, and for good reason. Arrietty, which is what I'm going to be calling this film from now on, is what I like to call a sauceless Studio Ghibli film, which at its core basically means that the movie is mid! Now I know that this channel has basically just become Ghibli's #1 ass kisser, but believe it or not, they have made a handful of films that I don't think are necessarily great, and Arrietty is certainly one of them. Don't get me wrong, this film is not nearly on the same level of shittiness as something like Tales from Earthsea or Earwig and the Witch, but it's nowhere near the same quality as a lot of the masterpieces Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata created. Honestly, the best thing I can say about Arrietty is that it's fine, adequate. It'll get the job done. I won't hate myself while watching this. And while that standard might fly for some dipshit animation studio like Disney or Pixar, it's really disappointing when that's the best thing I can say about a Ghibli film. I mean, come on, this is a studio that has proven time and time again that they are more than capable of creating beautiful pieces of art that aren't just great animated movies, but great movies in general. Even some of Miyazaki's lesser films like Nausicaa or Ponyo have memorable elements to them that make them stand out. They might not be as great as Miyazaki's more beloved work, but they still have the sauce that makes them worth watching. They still have that magic that makes them worth discussing and remembering. Unfortunately, Arrietty doesn't have that magical sauce, but what's really infuriating for me isn't just that the movie lacks what makes most of Ghibli's other films great, but that it had so much potential to be great. Like on paper, the movie has all the makings of an exciting adventure film, a story about a family of tiny people who borrow shit from regular-sized people, but are eventually discovered by the house's maid, causing Arrietty and her human companion Sho to team up and find a way to save her family and make peace between the normal-sized people and the Peter Dinklages. If Miyazaki had gotten his hands on this shit, this would have been nothing less than another fine-ass film that Ghibli could have slapped on its resume. We had the recipe for a movie that could have been this awesome combination between Nausicaa, Totoro, and Kiki, but we instead are left with is just Tiptoes meets Epic meets Ratatouille, the mediocre baby-ass anime edition. There aren't any memorable moments in Arrietty that I can immediately point to like I can with a lot of other Ghibli films. The movie lacks a lot of the strong writing, character development, and basic world building that a lot of Miyazaki and Takahata films have, as nothing about this film's characters or setting or tone is interesting whatsoever. Arrietty is literally just a watered-down beta version of Nausicaa and Sand, but without any of their charm or likability. The parents in this film are completely one-dimensional and don't have any other personality traits aside from being concerned parents. Sho's character is literally boiled down to just that he's a sick boy, and even then, the movie does jack shit with this, and it just feels like nothing more than a subplot the director crammed in because Totoro had a similar character and conflict. Even the music is so bland and forgettable, which is such a shame because part of what makes a lot of Ghibli's masterpieces so memorable are their scores. Joe Hisaishi has proven time and time again that he is a master of his craft. The themes that he writes for all of Miyazaki's films are a big reason as to why these movies are still looked at fondly to this day. But unlike movies like Kiki or Spirited Away, where I know their scores like the back of my hand, I couldn't tell you the first thing about the music for Arrietty other than it just felt like standard generic kids movie music. Everything about Arrietty feels like such a derivative, washed down version of another, better Ghibli film that I would sooner rewatch in a heartbeat before I ever rewatch this shit. If this movie fails to recapture a lot of the same magic that Miyazaki and Takahata can create in their own films, and it also fails to carve its own identity that makes it stand out or feel unique, then what exactly does Arrietty offer on its own merits that I can't just find literally anywhere else? And unfortunately, this is where I have to end the video because, in all honesty, I've already run out of things to say about Arrietty. There is barely anything to talk about because this film has almost nothing interesting to say, and it left that little of an impression in my brain. I wish I could make a video essay in the same spirit as the ones I made for all of Miyazaki's films. I wish I could find that one thing, that one kernel of creativity and passion that would give me that spark to make a whole ass video about, but unfortunately, Arrietty just doesn't have it. I think rewatching both this and When Marnie Was There, which you'll see a video on that film as well, don't worry, it'll come out soon, confirmed why I don't like anything that Studio Ponoc has released, which, for those of you who don't know, is the studio created by a bunch of former Ghibli employees, including the director of Arrietty himself, Hiromasa Yonebayashi. Studio Ponoc feels like a sauceless version of Studio Ghibli because the people making films there previously made sauceless Studio Ghibli movies like Arrietty and When Marnie Was There. The Secret World of Arrietty may be good enough for kids and families that want a simple and easy 90-minute animated movie, but as someone who doesn't doesn't have the time for mediocrity anymore and gave this studio's most recent film a 10 out of 10, good enough isn't good enough for me, and neither is this movie.